Welcome to Ultimate Megaprojects.
Hey, I'm Jack Hyber, and today we're taking a deep look at the most audacious, most consequential, and most strategically insane engineering project of the 21st century, China's artificial island fortress program in the South China Sea.
Somewhere deep in the heart of Western China, the earth is shaking, not from an earthquake, not from a natural disaster, from a machine. A machine so large it has its own weather system inside it. A machine so powerful it can chew through solid granite at a rate that defies physics. China calls it an engineering solution. The United States calls it something else entirely, a threat. Because right now, as you watch this, China is operating the most powerful mountain-destroying machines ever built on this planet. A fleet of TBMs, tunnel-boring machines, each one costing hundreds of millions of dollars. Together, part of a $50 billion infrastructure program that is literally erasing mountains. And Washington is in full panic mode.
And threatening to make America's entire infrastructure look like it belongs in the last century. This is the story of China's $50 billion monster machine program, how it works, why it's terrifying the West, and what it actually means for the future of global power. Let's get into it. First, let's understand what we're actually dealing with: a tunnel boring machine, or TBM. On the surface, the name sounds almost boring. It bores tunnels, simple enough. But nothing about these machines is simple. China's largest TBMs measure up to 15 meters in diameter. That's nearly 50 feet across. The cutter head alone, the rotating disc at the front that grinds through rock, weighs over 3,000 tons. Think of it like this. Imagine a giant mechanical worm the size of a building. At its mouth, hundreds of tungsten carbide cutting discs, each one spinning under thousands of tons of hydraulic pressure. Behind the mouth, a conveyor system removing thousands of tons of shattered rock per day. Behind that, concrete lining segments being installed automatically as the machine moves forward. The entire machine stretches back 100 meters or more. It doesn't just drill a hole, it drills the hole, removes the debris, lines the walls with concrete, and leaves behind a finished tunnel, all in one continuous motion. At peak operation, China's most advanced TBMs can advance up to 30 meters per day through solid rock. Inside these machines, up to 30 engineers and operators work around the clock across 3 shifts. Temperature inside can exceed 40 degrees Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit. The noise is beyond what safety regulations allow for more than a few minutes at a time. And yet, these crews work in there every single day, because China is in a race.
The Tibetan Plateau, the roof of the world. Average elevation over 4,000 meters. Earthquake-prone, permafrost, landslides, temperatures that swing 60 degrees Celsius between summer and winter. Building a railway here was considered by most Western engineers to be technically impossible. Not by China. The numbers are staggering. Of the railway's 1,600-kilometer route, over 80% will consist of bridges and tunnels. That's 1,280 kilometers of infrastructure suspended above valleys or bored through mountains. The project requires drilling over 330 tunnels. The longest, the Hengduan Mountain Tunnel, will stretch over 60 kilometers, making it one of the longest railway tunnels in human history. That is not one mountain being tunneled through. That is an entire mountain range. Total project cost? Conservatively estimated at $50 billion US. Some analysts say the final figure will exceed $100 billion when completed. For context, that is more than double the cost of the entire U.S. interstate highway system when adjusted for inflation, for a single railway line in the mountains of Western China.
I agree. The
Let's
data's
go
conclusive.
deeper into the
We
machine
can't endorse
itself,
this.
because the engineering here is genuinely extraordinary. At the front of every TBM sits the cutter head, a massive rotating disc studded with tungsten carbide disc cutters, the hardest commercially available cutting material on Earth. Each disc cutter presses against the rock face under pressures exceeding 250 kilonewtons, roughly the weight of 25 metric tons, pressing on a contact area smaller than your hand. Under that pressure, the rock doesn't cut, it fractures. Chips fall away from the face in a process called chipping action, not grinding, fracturing. Those chips fall into a collection system at the base of the cutter head. From there, a conveyor belt carries them backward through the entire length of the machine, sometimes 150 meters, before depositing them onto rail cars that carry the debris outside. At peak operation, a single TBM removes up to 5,000 tons of rock per day. That's a 5,000-ton pile of rock every single day, removed from inside a mountain. But removing the rock is only half the job. As the machine advances, robotic arms behind the cutter head automatically lift precast concrete segments into position. Each segment weighs several tons. They're bolted together to form perfect rings, sealing the tunnel walls against water infiltration and ground pressure before the surrounding rock can move.
The machine essentially leaves a finished tunnel behind it as it eats forward. And all of this is guided by GPS systems accurate to within millimeters, laser guidance, real-time geological sensors that detect fault lines, water pockets, and pressure changes ahead of the cutter head before the machine reaches them. Because hitting an unexpected underground river at full advance speed isn't a setback.
The numbers are staggering.
It's a catastrophe.
80% of the route,
But
over
here's what the
1,200
Chinese
kilometers, is
state
bridges and
media
tunnels.
doesn't broadcast.
That's almost the entire distance
These
from London
projects
to
have
Rome.
not gone smoothly. In
Infrastructure
2021,
suspended above
during
valleys.
construction of a highway tunnel in Sichuan province, a TBM struck an unexpected fault zone. Water pressure built up behind the
project
cutter head
requires
faster
drilling
than
over
sensors could
330
detect.
tunnels.
Before operators could respond, a catastrophic inrush of water and debris flooded the tunnel
That is
section.
not one mountain being
Workers were
tunneled
trapped
through.
for days.
That is an
The
entire
Sichuan-Tibet
mountain range.
Railway route crosses over 20 major geological fault lines,
Conservatively
including the
estimated at $50
Xianshui
billion
Fault, one of the
Some
most
analysts say $100
seismically
billion
active
or
fault
more.
systems in
For
Asia,
context, that's
capable of
between the
producing
Apollo program and the
magnitude
US
7+
Interstate Highway System.
earthquakes with little warning. Building a
For
high-speed
context, that
railway
is more
on
than
top of
double
that,
the cost of the entire
Chinese
US
engineers
Interstate
have
Highway
developed
System.
specialized TBM designs with real-time
For a
seismic
single
dampening
railway
systems.
line.
The machines can detect ground
In the
movement and
mountains of
automatically
Western
halt
China.
operations within seconds. But halt operations isn't the
Let's go
same as
deeper
being
into the
safe.
machine itself.
Then there's the money. Original estimates for the Sichuan-Tibet Railway projected completion by 2025. That deadline has
front
been
of every
quietly
TBM
pushed
sits
back
the cutter head,
multiple times.
a massive
Current
rotating
projections
disc studded
suggest
with
full
tungsten
completion
carbide disc
no earlier
cutters.
than 2035, a 10-year delay on a $50
Each disc
billion
cutter presses against
project.
the rock face
And
under
in the
pressures
remote
exceeding
sections of western Tibet,
250
far from
kilonewtons.
journalists, far from oversight, questions remain about construction quality,
Under that
worker
pressure,
conditions,
the rock
and the
doesn't
true
cut, it
environmental
fractures.
cost of boring
Chips
through
break away from
glacial
the face
mountain
in a process
ecosystems.
called chipping action.
Questions that
Not
Beijing
grinding,
has not
fracturing.
answered. Here's
Those
what
chips
makes
fall
this
into a collection
genuinely
system at the
alarming
base of
for
the
the
cutter
West.
head. From there,
It's
a
not
conveyor belt
just
carries them
about a
backward through
railway.
the entire length of the
When
machine,
China
sometimes
finishes this
150
line,
meters,
it
before
won't
depositing
just
them onto rail
connect
cars
two
that carry
Chinese
debris
cities.
outside. At
It
peak
creates a
operation,
strategic
single
corridor
TBM
directly
removes up to
into the Tibetan
5,000
plateau.
tons of rock per
Military
day.
logistics, resource extraction, geopolitical leverage over the entire
That's a
Himalayan region.
5,000-ton pile
And the
of
same
rock.
TBM
Every
technology
single
being
day,
used here,
removed from
it's
inside a
being
mountain.
exported to Pakistan, to Central Asia, to Africa, to the Middle East.
But removing the
China
rock is only
isn't
half
just
the
building
job.
its own
As the
infrastructure
machine
anymore.
advances,
It's building
robotic
everyone
arms behind
else's,
the cutter
and
head
that
automatically
changes
lift
everything.
precast concrete
The
lining segments
Sichuan-Tibet
into
Railway
position.
is the crown jewel
The
of
machine
something far
essentially leaves
larger.
a finished tunnel
China's
behind
Belt
it
and
as it
Road
eats
Initiative,
forward.
BRI, a $1 trillion
global infrastructure program spanning over
And all of this is guided
140
by GPS
countries.
systems accurate to
Roads,
within millimeters.
railways,
Laser
ports,
guidance, real-time
pipelines,
geological
power
sensors that
stations,
detect fault lines,
all
water
built
pockets,
using
and pressure
Chinese
changes ahead of
money,
the cutter head
Chinese
before the machine
companies,
out.
Chinese
In
equipment,
2023,
and increasingly
classified Pentagon
Chinese
assessment, later
TBMs.
partially declassified,
Report of
identified
Hambantota,
Chinese
Sri
infrastructure
Lanka,
penetration
Chinese-operated
as a top-tier
port
national
footage.
security
The
concern.
pattern has become clear to
Not
analysts
because of
in
missiles,
Washington and London.
not because of
China
warships,
finances
because of
infrastructure
railways
in
and
developing
tunnels.
nations. Those nations fall into debt. China gains operational control of strategic
Because whoever
assets,
controls
ports,
the infrastructure
railways,
of a region
roads as
controls
repayment.
the movement of goods,
To U.S.
military
Pentagon briefing
equipment,
room,
and
officials
influence
pointing at
through that
maps.
region.
In 2023, a classified
Meanwhile,
Pentagon
the US
assessment,
spent
later
over a
partially
decade debating a
declassified,
$1.12
identified
trillion
Chinese
infrastructure
infrastructure
bill
penetration
for
as a
roads, bridges,
top-tier
and
national
rail.
security concern. Not because of missiles,
China
not because
spent
of
that
warships,
much on
because
one
of
initiative.
railways and tunnels. Because whoever controls the infrastructure of a region controls the movement of goods,
In other
military
countries,
equipment, and influence through that region. Meanwhile, the United States
gap is
spent
not
over
closing.
a decade
It
debating
is
a
widening.
$1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that covered the entire country's roads,
America's
bridges, and
average
rail.
railway
China
infrastructure
spent
is
that
over
much
40
on
years
one
old.
initiative in other countries. The gap is not closing, it is widening. America's
China has
average
built
railway
40,000 kilometers
infrastructure
of
is
high-speed
over
rail
40
in the last
years
15
old.
years.
China has built 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail in
And
the
the
last
TBMs
15
boring through the Tibetan
years.
mountains right now
That's
are just the
more
latest
high-speed
chapter.
rail than the entire rest of the world combined. And the TBMs boring
Behind
through
every
the
statistic,
Tibetan mountains right now are
behind
just
every
the
building.
latest
So why does this
chapter.
matter to someone sitting in Houston or London or Toronto? Because $5 trillion global trade passes through these waters every year. Because 80% of Japan's oil imports transit the South China Sea.
The workers on the Sichuan-Tibet Railway live in temporary camps at altitudes exceeding 3,000 meters. Many suffer from chronic altitude sickness,
The workers on the
headaches,
Sichuan-Tibet Railway
fatigue,
live in
reduced
temporary camps
oxygen
at
making
altitudes
every
exceeding
physical
3,000
task harder.
meters.
Inside the tunnels, temperatures swing between freezing cold near
Inside
the
the
rock
tunnels,
face and
temperatures swing
sweltering
between
heat near the
freezing
machine's
cold near the
hydraulic
rock face
systems.
and sweltering
Workers
heat near
rotate
the
on
machine's
6-hour
hydraulic
shifts.
systems.
The noise requires ear protection rated for the
Workers rotate
highest
on 6-hour
industrial
shifts.
exposure levels.
The noise
Meetings
requires
happen
ear protection
every
rated
single
for the
shift,
highest industrial
because in this
exposure
environment,
levels.
a moment's inattention can mean a
Safety
life.
briefings happen every single
Most
shift.
of these workers
Remember,
come
these
from
red
rural
X's mark danger
provinces across
zones.
China.
Evacuate to green
They
muster
left
points.
families
What if the
behind,
main exit is
parents,
blocked?
children,
Use the secondary
spouses.
route on the map.
They came here
Most
for
of
the
these workers
wages,
come from
for the
rural
stability,
provinces across
for the
China.
chance to
They
be
left
part of
families
something
behind.
bigger than
Parents,
themselves.
children,
Some of them have
spouses.
never seen
Many
a
haven't
project
gone
like this
home in over a
before.
year.
And some of them,
They came
standing
here for
at the
the
mouth of a
wages.
tunnel they drilled through a mountain, have said it quietly to each other. We changed this place forever. When complete,
For
the
the stability,
Sichuan-Tibet Railway
for the
will
chance to be
reduce
part of
travel
something
time
bigger
between
than
Chengdu
themselves.
and Lhasa from 48 hours, currently by road, to just 13 hours
And
by
some of them,
high-speed rail.
Standing at the
The
mouth
economic
of a tunnel they drilled
transformation
through a
of
mountain,
Tibet will be
have said it
profound.
quietly to each other.
Access to rare earth mineral deposits, agricultural markets,
When
tourism,
complete, the
military
Sichuan-Tibet
logistics.
Railway will reduce
But it
travel
doesn't
time
stop
between
there.
Chengdu and Lhasa from
China's
48 hours,
TBM
currently by
manufacturers,
road, to just
Craig,
13 hours by
SSC, and
high-speed rail.
CRTG,
Access to
are
rare
now the
earth mineral
largest
deposits,
producers of tunnel boring
agricultural
machines
markets,
in the world,
tourism.
displacing European competitors like Herniknecht and Robbins, who dominated the industry for decades.
China's TBM manufacturers,
They are selling these
CRG,
machines to
CSSC,
over
CRTG,
40
are now the largest
countries.
producers of tunnel boring machines
Every
in the world,
tunnel these
displacing
machines
European
bore
competitors
in a
like
foreign
Herniknecht
country
and Robbins, who
is
dominated
another
the industry
piece
for
of
decades.
Chinese infrastructure, another piece of Chinese influence, another piece of a global network being
They are
quietly
selling these
assembled
machines to
one
over
mountain
40
at a time.
countries.
And while
Every
Washington
tunnel these
debates,
machines bore
China
in a foreign
builds.
country.
So here's the real question. Is this just engineering, just infrastructure, just a
Is another
railway
piece of
connecting
Chinese
two cities in
infrastructure.
western China? Or is it something more calculated? A long-term strategic play using concrete, steel, and a $50 billion
Another piece of
machine
Chinese
program
influence.
to reshape
Another
global
piece of a
power
global
without
network
firing
being
a
quietly
single
assembled.
shot. History
mountain
is
at a
full of
time.
empires that rose on the strength of their infrastructure. Rome had its roads, Britain had its railways,
China builds.
America had its interstate
Question
highways.
is, why have we stopped? If this breakdown changed how you think about what's happening in the Pacific, hit that like button. Subscribe to Ultimate Megaprojects because we cover the engineering stories that are actually shaping the world. Drop your thoughts below.
Every frame in this video has been crafted through a multi-stage documentary production process, from original research and script development to AI cinematic visualization and professional editing. Human creativity guides every step. A digital documentary host and advanced visual tools are used to clearly explain complex mega projects, engineering, and global infrastructure. This channel is dedicated to original documentary storytelling and follows all YouTube policies regarding AI assisted and synthetic media, ensuring the informative, unique, and monetization